Welcome to Quantum Revenue Expansion, where we keep you motivated, inspired, and thinking big. Up-leveling into quantum revenue is a choice that we can all make in any moment, and then continue to make that choice to stay in that space each day. On this podcast, Ursula will share revenue growth strategies to reach your next level and introduce you to CEOs just like you who are making it happen. What's your next quantum leap going to be? See it, own it, and take that first step. If this is you, then Ursula wants to invite you to join us at the next 2X Intensive now. Go to salescoachnow.com/apply. You are listening to Quantum Revenue Expansion with your host, Ursula Menchez. Let's go.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Quantum Revenue Expansion, the podcast where we talk about how to turn your annual income into your monthly income. And I'm super excited today. Okay, I'm like geeking out. I'm so like, I have someone here today that I'm so excited to share with you because I feel like I've known her forever. I've been reading her books. I've been hanging out in her quantum world, and she just didn't know it yet, right? Which I'm sure a lot of people hang out with you, Cynthia, and you don't know it. I have the amazing Cynthia Sue Larson today with us, and we're going to talk about high energy money on the Quantum Revenue Expansion show. So I'm very excited about that. She also has a book called Quantum Jump. So these two together will change your world, change your life. So Cynthia, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Ursula. I'm so pleased to be with you. Love your energy. Love everything you're doing. So
thank you. And I promise not to be too gushy. Like I'll bring it bring it back. So my clients know, like our listeners know, like, you know, how much I'm such a reader and an author. And so when I get to have amazing people like you on the show, I get really excited. So we're going to get there in a minute. A couple housekeeping things for our listeners all over the world. Just want to say we love you. We send you so much energy. We're so glad to hang out with you. As a collective, I know we're sending lots of energy to Ukraine, Ethiopia, all the places in the world that could use an up level and use lots of love right now. So really sending that energy out so that they may all find their way to whatever it is, their quantum leap, whatever it is that they need right now in their lives. So holding that space for all of you and for the world. And if you haven't yet, if you need a little up level, go to our website, ursulainc.co. On the homepage, you'll see that we have a course called Quantum Revenue Expansion. It pairs really nicely with the podcast. It's a 3-part master course. And we talk about everything from how to create a new quantum revenue container to how to up level your prices, your packaging, so they speak directly to your ideal client. And then at the end, I get a little more woo, a little more quantum. We talk about how to collapse time and get there even faster. All of the woo grounded in strategy. So we love to bring those two worlds together, which you'll see Cynthia does as well. Cynthia brings science to everything that she does so that we can lean into the quantum world while we're also playing on the 3D realm, which I think both of those things together are really powerful. All right, so let's just dive in. Let me tell you about Cynthia. Cynthia Sue Larson is the best-selling author of 6 books. She helps people visualize and access whole new worlds of possibility. Cynthia hosts Living the Quantum Dream on the Dream Vision 7 radio network. She's been featured on the Discovery Channel, the History Channel, Coast to Coast AM, and the BBC, and has presented papers at international conferences on science, spirituality, and consciousness. Cynthia has a degree in physics from UC Berkeley, that little degree in physics from UC Berkeley. Wow, I love that. An MBA as well, and she's a doctor of divinity. Cynthia reminds us to ask in every situation, how good can it get? And to ask that question even when things are tough. That's what you've taught me, Cynthia. So let's just dive in. We're going to have a conversation. I'm excited to see where this is going to go today because I know our listeners are already leaning in. So tell us your story. Let's just start there.
okay. Well, as you read my bio, it's obvious that it's been kind of a strange journey because it started with physics, went into business, and then here I am talking about consciousness. And that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years. Really, that happened as a result of going through a Kundalini awakening, which is really feeling energy flooding through one's system and starting to see the world very differently, changing one's entire focus and what one thought one was doing. In my case, I felt like I couldn't really see the world the same anymore after that. So it was life-changing in a big way. So I've continued, and then I explored the Doctor of Divinity, got very interested in spirituality. And ever since then, I've been writing books about the way that our identity maps into all of our physical experience in life. So it's a very spiritual approach, which is not necessarily associated with physics. The physics part would be where the observer comes in, as you well know. The consciousness factor is our levels of perception based on meditation and recognizing that we can rise above any situation and start witnessing what I would call quantum jumps. Some people call them miracles. They're like synchronicities, but they're literally changes in physical reality. So I love playing with that. I feel like this is not an accident that this information is being very clearly made available to people at this time, when collectively we're noticing people kind of getting nervous and worried about lots of seemingly insoluble problems. And so I'm very interested in that, and how we can collectively basically come through any situation, rising above our fears, our concerns. And of course, you're working today with money, and so it's very specific. I love looking at that too. But I have this bigger, broader range of focus that matters so much to me, because I feel like we're creative people. We are co-creators in this reality, and the way that we do this together makes a difference. So it's time for us to give up some of our old beliefs, I believe, having to do with clawing our way to the top or winning at all costs. So I really do believe in ethics, integrity, spirituality, but I don't see that that's in any way, shape, or form opposed to money. It's just part of money as an energy.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So much to unpack. So I want to start. I mean, I'm glad you brought that into the space of, there's a lot of fear in the world. You can't, I mean, you look, if you by a mistake turn the news on, or you look on your phone and you look at the internet, you kind of have to dig to find happy, joyful, great stories. And yet the law of polarity is real. Like, we know there's millions and millions of amazing things happening in the world right now, especially among CEOs doing great things in the world. I'm having fun watching Elon Musk as a disruptor in the world. He's just like, hey, what about this? Or I'm just going to buy Twitter, or I'm taking on, my favorite was when he offered to have a duel with Putin, and whoever wins gets Ukraine. I don't know if you saw that, but like, we have these disruptors in the world who are CEOs doing these very interesting things. And yet underneath that, I mean, when I connect with people, there's just a lot that we're carrying, whether or not we're realizing it or not. And coming through the pandemic, we're carrying still, like, there's just that stuff. And so we work a lot with our clients to release that so they can be in the clearest energy. I happen to catch one of your YouTube interviews, and forgive me, I can't remember who was interviewing you, but you were talking about just how many great things are happening in the world right now, and kind of what some of the great things. I mean, obviously there was a lot of downside to the pandemic, but there's also a lot of upside that has been ushered in, and often we're not paying attention to it. So I'd love to hear, because you mentioned that, like, as you think about the world, right? You want people to rise above the fear, the scarcity, like the things that are kind of out there.
Right.
What's your take on that, and what's your advice on how best we can do that?
Well, I recommend look for the gift in everything. And I'm not saying it flippantly, because I got COVID, I got long COVID. I came out the other side of that. So this is not me being naive and foolish. I know it may sound that way. I live this way. So basically, no matter what happens, no matter what the circumstances, because sometimes what we tend to do is we tell ourselves, like, oh, I am stuck because of fill in the blank, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, global warming, or the Ukraine, or whatever the situation may seem like. And what I'd like people to do in listening to this podcast today, and I know you're up for it because you're all about it, is really level up, in the sense that you're changing that level of consciousness from very confined within some sort of a trap that it may seem like. It doesn't matter what the trap may seem like. You are bigger than that, always, because you're connected, as we all are, to this creative source, whatever you want to call it. And that's true even for atheists, because for an atheist, I would say, well, there is such a thing as zero entropy. We can imagine it. We can conceive of it. It's what you might think of as the source of time. It's timelessness. It does exist. It's not imaginary. So even for an atheist, they can transcend these so-called traps of confinement, because they're usually time-based, space-based. It's an illusion. And how do we know it's an illusion? We know it when we meditate. when we access these states of consciousness where we can literally feel that there's something much bigger. So it's experiential. And for people who have trouble with it, just start meditating and take, keep going with that process, and you can start breaking through. But the biggest idea of all is that no matter what the seemingly big hurdle might be, you are connected with something much bigger than that, always. And you'll never lose touch with that. Therefore, there's a gift in this experience. Therefore, you can ask, how good can this get? I know, even in the midst of whatever it is you're facing. And I know it's big stuff. I'm not making light of it. I've been through big stuff. I've been through, that's what I'm saying. This still works. It absolutely works, because then our attention becomes open to, like, really, how can this get any better than this seemingly insolvable problem? As soon as you start asking the questions you want the answers to, you will start getting them.
Yeah. And that's why how good can it get is such a powerful question. And, I invite you to read Cynthia's books. Quantum Jumps is amazing. High Energy Money, which we're going to talk about, because you have been through a lot. Like, this isn't just from a place of like, you've been through a lot of things. And I'm sure there's things you haven't even shared in all your books that you've been through. And I resonate with that. I remember, I've shared this many times, and it's in one of my books, Selling with Synchronicity, but during the 2008 crash, when everything was crashing down, my husband and I, we lost, all of our real estate. We lost pretty much everything. But there was a moment, and luckily we were on that same page together, but there was a moment when we said, we can get it all back again. It's just stuff. The money's going to come back. Like, we had that realization. And so we had the best time. Like, it was like we had shed so much, and we had the best time, just like Phoenix rising up. And out of that came our beautiful son. I don't know that we would have had our son. We would have stayed on that other path. Like, there was just so much goodness that came from it. And we're in a different place. We're in a different state. We're in literally a different state in the US, and like a different state of being. So many gifts in that. All right. So hopefully that was like helpful. Like, really like lean into rising above, feeling into the higher power, whatever that means for you, to recognize the illusions that are around you. So let's dive in to this conversation. Yes. Here we talk about quantum revenue expansion. A lot of our listeners are CEOs, business owners. And, I always say that being a business owner, it can be the biggest self-development course you'll ever go through, because it literally will challenge everything. It'll challenge you personally, professionally. There's that thing called imposter. So like, so much comes up, and then you're supposed to make a profit, right? Then you're supposed to especially when the business is you. We have a lot of service providers on here where it's like, you originally, or you still are, a lot of the service. So share with us, Cynthia, what inspired you? I know you work with a lot of clients, but what inspired you to write High Energy Money?
Well, I was giving talks to people and noticing that over and over again, people are experiencing the same kind of issues. They'd ask questions that seemed like, wow, I should just put this in a book. So this is the way I think a lot of books are born.
Yes.
And that's totally what happened. And so the big idea here in High Energy Money is that there are lots of ways to experience money, but the relationships that we have with it, I love your example, perfect example. It's kind of like, oh, it went away, but it'll come back. So it's almost like if you're at the ocean and the waves go out, we don't panic like, oh my gosh, the waves pulled away. It's like, it's coming back. That is brilliant to notice that we're in this state of flow, this grace. And so what a great example. And the other thing I love about your story is the joy that you were obviously feeling in that freedom, the permission to give yourself that permission. It's okay to be happy no matter where you are, and have a sense of humor no matter where you are. Even if you feel like I'm not where I want to be, just it's good to lighten up, because these emotional states of being, and I love what you said about the business owner just going through everything. Oh my gosh. And nobody tells you that. Nobody. It's not, I went through business school. That was never mentioned. It should be, but maybe it would turn people away. They'd be like, oh no.
No, thank you.
If I wanted psychotherapy, I'd be, in psychology, but because it just feels like, what have I gotten myself into? And often, I think business owners often feel alone. So I'm really glad you do this. I'm glad you bring them together, give them this resource, so valuable. But what brought me to write this book, High Energy Money, had to do with the awareness that sometimes what we visualize is not what we actually love. And if you've got if you've got that out of sync situation going on, it's hard to be playful like Elon Musk. And I did not hear about the dual thing. That's hilarious. It's serious, but it's like so funny.
It's a pattern disrupt, right? Which we need right now.
Oh, I know we all need to laugh. We need to kind of be like, like, let's loosen up a little bit. And then with the low part of the totem pole, we've got these three areas in ourselves, our heads, our hearts, and our guts. And we talk about our gut feelings. Some people say, I always trust my gut. Some people say they always trust their heart. And some people say everything I visualize, I get. This all works together as a piece when you line it up. And the thing that people often don't pay attention to is these various lacks of alignment based on internal beliefs. So this book basically contains it's a very small book. You can carry it in your pocket almost, or your purse. And it's, yes, but it can just be that reminder that this miraculous transformation of your financial circumstance can happen in a moment. And it does happen as easily as what you're describing, just literally feeling, okay, that realization you had is like a belief adjustment. So we can start flipping some of those internal, usually subconscious beliefs into positive affirmations. And this book has some very specific ones people can utilize. And then it goes through some really far out examples. To me, they're not far out, but I know to a lot of people, it might seem like, well, that part was a little bit wild, but I think for your audience, they're used to this idea.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to hear a far out example. Let's talk about it. Like, what's a far out example to you?
Okay. Well, I know people, sometimes they just go tilt if they hear that money just showed up in someone's house. A gentleman attended a workshop that I conducted in Sacramento, California. And then he went home and later told me, because I'd been talking about how I had just had $1,000. I used that amount as an example in my bank account, and I did forensic accounting. I couldn't trace where it came in. And that was one of those times I'm like, this is wild. And then I waited for there to be a bank error, no sign of where it came in. It just was suddenly there when it hadn't been there before. And it made the difference for me that in that moment. So I could do what seemed like a frivolous vacation. Like, well, if I had $1,000 more, I'd go, oh, I do? What? Wait a minute. How'd that come in? So I mentioned that in my class. And then this gentleman, he heard that. It must have gone right into his subconscious, because I said, it doesn't have to be in your bank account. It could be cash in your drawer. It could be anything. Well, that's what happened to him. He got home and he said, I don't keep cash in my drawers. And I found $1,000 in cash. This sounds far out. I know it.
I love it. No, this audience is taking notes right now. Believe me.
Okay. And you may wonder, how do these things happen? And again, It's that energy source, that zero entropy. So it's really the source of everything. So for me, it's spiritual, but for someone, I embrace atheists. So this is not, it doesn't depend on your path. I believe in the perennial philosophy that was popularized by Aldous Huxley, where basically all of the traditions, the spiritual faiths of Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, you name it, they do ultimately arrive at this very pinnacle point, and then I'm including atheists, zero entropy, because there's that infinite, eternal source of everything, and it does exist. So when you recognize that's what we're connected to, that gives us everything, and then just play with it. It's good to be a skeptic and be on that sort of fence, like, well, this sounds a bit weird, but maybe I'll try some of the exercises in the book. Maybe I'll start small, see if I can see some money showing up out of nowhere. But some people really believe in the revenue system. If that's comfortable for people, great, stay there. Then you can make in 1 month what you make in a year, what you used to make in a year, that kind of thing.
Okay, so many questions. I've like lots of things bubbling. So, okay, so you mentioned if you like the revenue model, good,
Yeah.
And if you want to kind of level up beyond that, so beyond that would mean things like that, like money can just show up out of seemingly nowhere.
Right. And but if you're an investor type and you like investments, then you can find perfect investments. It really matters where you put your attention. So you're working with what you care about, like who you really are, what you feel like you really need, and then what you love to look at and pay attention to. So some people love investing. They love to find a good, valuable product or service that they can support, or they just like to be kind of in the background and just playing money markets or investing in stocks and so forth. Other people really like to be the one who is doing the work and starting the startup. They want to be that visionary. And then some people, so it's knowing yourself, like what do you love? And then if you like the miracle approach, and then the money arrived, if that feels like the way you want to live. People that live that way tend to get exactly what they need when they need it. So it's not going to be necessarily a path of great luxury, but it might be. I mean, it's really dependent on who the person is.
Yeah. So money, for our listeners, they've heard my story. I mean, I grew up on a farm and we had food stamps. We had a family farm. There wasn't a lot of money during the 80s. And a lot of the farms were going under. Like we had enough. We had organic food when we didn't call it organic in the 80s, right? We just had food. And so a lot of things, our needs were met and things were taken care of, but grew up with very interesting beliefs about money. And so I've worked, the last 20 plus, more than that now, years, just shedding those and letting those go. And today I'm in a place where I do the revenue model. We do this with our clients. Like we set the revenue model, we create what I like to say, the container, the space for the money to show up. So if you want a 7-figure business, you got to create a 7-figure revenue model that you believe in, that you believe is actually possible, right?
Right.
And then from there, we really practice being delighted and excited to see what comes in. Like for me, I have stories these days. I mean, I don't want to get into all of them, but I will say in the last couple of years, money has really shown up. I haven't had the, cash in the drawer yet, but that's fun to work on. Like I'm going to let that in. I'm going to let that in. But just money has really been coming through, not just from my business, just from a lot of places. And I'm reminded how fun this can be. And I think that I want to give, like, as we're talking about this, we're talking about the idea of high energy money, right? Like really being in that joyful energy that brings in more and allowing in more. So why did you name your book High Energy Money? Like, what does that mean to you?
Well, it means that there's an awareness of this accessing that. I keep using this symbol, this, because you talk about leveling up level, and it's recognizing that at the highest level of our being, we know what that feels like to have access to that infinite energy. We know it as children. We know it with the beginner mind before we forget. And that's how it's possible to have that beginner's luck with beginner's mind, because we don't yet know that we can't do anything. So the high energy is part of that conduit. It just comes straight through. Kids have that high energy. When parents wonder, where do they get that energy? They're still fresh from source. They really have that access. They don't yet know, like, you can't do this, you can't do that. I love your containment model, because then it's like it's kind of like a shell. It's like protective, like the world cannot intrude on this. And that's a good idea. And we start feeling the need for that as we grow up, which is different than leveling up. It's almost like the kids already have that access to that high energy that comes straight from source. And we all have access to it. All we need to do is clear the beliefs that we have in the way out. That's the main thing. And we often don't even see these beliefs. And we're used to things like money is the root of all evil. That's an obvious one that you'd want to flip around and say, like, cancel on that. Obviously, that doesn't make any sense. But some people are raised in some sort of maybe a religious environment, or maybe a family situation where that was believed by the family or the group. And then it's a process of breaking out of that shell.
Right.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, finish that thought.
So this high energy, it's very simple, but it's very, once it comes into it, we notice that we have various blockages to it, sometimes in the way we think about money, sometimes in the way we feel about money, sometimes in how we feel that money can be there to meet our needs. And we may bump into any one of these beliefs at any point. So it's good to go through, and I've got a list of various things in the book that you can kind of identify, like, oh, that sounds like me. I'm flipping through my copy of it.
Yeah.
It's not popping open right now, but there is a quick little checklist, and it makes it very easy just to see, okay, yeah, here they are. I found it. So it's on page 36 and 37. So you can discover some example money issues. That's not even a complete comprehensive list. It's just an example. So things like money creates problems. And if you read through these and you feel, what you want to do is get relaxed and then notice if you're clenching up or feeling like, oh, that is sometimes true. If you start pinging on any of these, then that's a signal like you can create an equally powerful affirmation. That's just the other side, the flip side of it, that's personalized for you, that you might as well easily believe. So instead of money creating problems, how about money creates solutions? That's equally true. I think it's more true. I always go, how good can it get? So in my perfect world, money creates solutions and it solves problems. The next one, money doesn't buy happiness, but it can certainly bring a lot of joy to the world. It brings solutions. So you want to take each one of these, and I don't want to do it too fast. If you're doing it by yourself, you really want to take time with these, really kind of do it like a meditation and see if you're getting triggered on any of these. That's the goal. You want to find the trigger points that are biggest for you. And then that's just what's coming up right now that you can work on. And you're so right about the business owners. People have no idea what they're dealing with, that it takes so much courage just to walk in that door, if it's a physical space, and be that business. If you're the one who's running the whole thing, people have no idea. They just think like, oh, it's a business. It's no, this is huge. And so I think people have already gone through a lot of this. And if they're saying like, and you're asking me to do more, yes, but it's going to get better. And I'm not a believer in suffering. So when you find the little triggers, then you're going to get your perfect affirmations, and you can start powering your way out of whatever partial blockage that you may have at this time.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And really breaking down high energy money. We go there. So Cynthia, would you share like you've been doing this for so long, right? You've been like, you're in the work. I mean, you've tied these pieces together for yourself. Is there any way that you specifically energize money now that works really well, or anything that maybe hasn't landed in the book?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Share?
Well, they're kind of personal stuff, but you're right. It's funny. Okay. One personal one had to do with my house, and it was going through a situation with my ex. And so it involved my home and taxes. It's like all the worst case scenario, but what do? This is my business. I delve into the energy of all this stuff. So I looked at, why me? It's like, oh, I get it. So no problem. I just started realizing, have I really loved my house? Because I know what it takes to create a miracle in this regard. And I did talk to my ex, do you want to fix the mistake you made? You actually caused it. And no, he didn't. Well, he sort of was considering it. And then he talked to his new wife, and then suddenly no. And like, really? Wow. Anyway, so I just decided this is going to be fun, right? Kind of like, this is a total nightmare, but it's going to be fun. So some of the things that I did had to do with just feeling, I know what to do. I know I need to get into that blissed out, neutral, accepting state. But I would literally hug and kiss my house, and I would tell it, like, I love you. And I feel like this is going to be great. And I would even tell my ex, I said, don't worry about me, don't worry about the situation, even though obviously he didn't care, So it's kind of a funny juxtaposition there.
Yeah. Yes.
But then the next thing that happens is then a miracle occurs, and then basically, the decision is in my favor, and I don't have to hire the attorneys and spend all this time and money in a pandemic going into, tax court to deal with all this. So that's, and you may say, well, that's kind of silly, kissing and hugging your house, but I felt like I could really feel it. Then I could feel like, this is my home. I could be uprooted and everything could change. I could deal with a mess in a pandemic as well as all, and I thought, but I love asking, how good can it get? How good can it get is no need for attorneys. Suddenly the court just decided in my favor, clearly you got it. So that's a very personal example.
Yes.
I may never write about it because it's so personal. So this is a gift for your audience.
Thank you. You just shared it with us. That makes so much sense that we talk on our show. We talk a lot about our business being its own entity, having its own energy, having conversations with our business. It's separate from us, right? Yes. It's asking for certain things. And I feel the same about our homes and our dwellings. They're loving us. They're taking care of us. And when we don't love them back, I do feel like things can kind of get kind of weird. And especially if people want to sell their house, I think, and you're like, I'm so done with you, right? And the house is like, fine. Whereas you're like, I love you so, it's having that relationship. So thank you for sharing that very, very personal example. And I know people all over the world are dealing with lots of things right now, so I'm sure that will resonate. I may ask one more question.
Yes, of course.
All right. So for our listeners, quantum jumps is, it's one of my favorites. And there's so much science. Look at me. I'm just hugging it. I hug my books. I love I love my Kindle. I love my bookshelves. They're like here. And quantum jumps is what it says it is. It talks about how to take a quantum jump in your life and your business and a lot of areas. And Cynthia, you've got so many great stories and examples and so much science in here. Like
Yes.
we did this, we read this book in our co-creation collective, which was very powerful. And then Cynthia created a video for this group, which we talked about ahead of time. So she had specific questions that you answered. And I want to share with you. So when we watched the video back, this is very interesting. And then I'll get to my question. But one of our clients heard something that no one else heard. And we haven't gone back to watch it yet. I'm not even sure it's in there, but nobody else heard you say, it was like a message specifically for her, and it really landed on something that she needed to hear. So I thought that was fascinating how even like watching a video on quantum jumps, our brains are, either we're missing things or they're not really not there. And she was meant to hear that message. So thank you for that. And so this idea of quantum jumps and really taking a quantum leap, what would you say, since we're talking about money, tying these two things together, if someone really wanted to take a quantum jump in their money to make their, we talk about making your annual income, your monthly income, but really taking that leap, what would you say to them?
Well, start with what you need, because it's that gut feeling really does matter. So, and a lot of people skip that part. They skip the subconscious because it's hard to hear. And so you listen to your dreams, listen to those daydreams, and know yourself. Never mind what people tell you, because that's not your world. And I think a lot of people, we get overwhelmed with our family of origin, sort of like those messages that kind of impinge and intrude. And that's not your life. What you need is what you need. And so don't let anyone talk you out of it. So it's really recognizing that you can power yourself back up. I think a lot of people, when it comes to money, that seems to be the place where people kind of take the heaviest hits, is in the subconscious. And when like, I need this, I deserve it. So the deserving, that can often trigger a whole bunch of other stuff. There's a lot here. Money brings up everything, just like so the quantum jump is just knowing all it takes is the energy to make the jump, and the vision, and just the full alignment. You're like a rocket ship. When you're all lined up and you've got your launch pattern and you're good to go, then it's going to happen. Nothing can stop it. So you're really going to achieve whatever you need. For sure. That's a given. You always get what you need. I like to improve it so that you get like, how good can it get? So instead of getting what you need and then oh my God, I don't want to even go there. We all have heard those stories. Let's skip those.
Yeah.
And the way you do that is by listening to your heart. Like, what you don't want to be off course. If your heart feels like I'm not in it, then it's personal. You need to figure out what is right for you. You don't have to do things the way other people did. You don't have to do what people told you. We always do it that way. Quantum jumps gives you permission to literally just pretty much instantaneously start a whole new life. You get a fresh start. You have permission to be reborn as who you really are, and just shed all of those inhibitions and those little self defeating voices and so forth, things that interfere with that true high energy that's always coming through from source.
Yeah. Thank you. So first choose it, like get in touch with what's the heart's desire. What is it that I need? What is it that I want? What is it that I know I deserve? And that I'm in alignment with.
Yes.
And really choose it and be in it and stay in it.
Yeah.
Things don't look like they're going the way you want to. Believe me, I've been practicing this with my book and the bestseller train that it's been on. And I'm just like, no, like what's crazy about that story is I stepped into that a year ago. I already said, this is what it's going to be. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
Who showed up on that journey.
Yeah, it's kind of like you created a space for yourself to be that. And that's very important. And you're doing it. And I can see it, because before we started taping, I could see something that hasn't happened yet, apparently. But I'm already seeing it. I'm seeing it.
Goosebumps again. Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you for hanging out with us and sharing all the wisdom. And there's so much more wisdom in the book. So 2 things or 3 things or whatever you want to share, definitely tell us where our listeners can find your books. And then I know you have a free gift for them. So
yes,
as well.
My website is realityshifters.com, and I can autograph books if you buy them through me, but also, and you can, the gifts are right there on the newsletter subscription. So I don't sell the list to anyone, and you can get a free ebook and a free audio chapter and some other little freebies. But the best part is you get my monthly newsletter, which reminds you every month how to live the life of your dreams without any limitations. So it's really kind of living zero limits is what it's all about. Although that's not what I say, but for you guys are the Imagineers of our world. So thank all of you for doing what you're doing. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And I just want to reiterate, realityshifters.com.
Right.
I haven't signed up for your newsletter yet. I was thinking, why haven't I signed up? So that's going to happen today. So realityshifters.com, you get special bonus gifts when you sign up, a meditation ebook, which that I need for sure. And somehow this other stuff cut off. So there's the meditation ebook, the consciousness,
Right.
something.
Okay. I can't remember. I think it's an article on consciousness. So that one's, it's like a mini ebook, very tiny, but it's meaty. Sometimes little things are big. So it's a big little thing.
Yes, a bit huge, right? The little things make the biggest impact. So definitely go to Reality Shifters. And it looks like you hang out on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter, all the places. So we can find you there at Cynthia Larson.
Yes.
All right. Final word for our listeners all over the world. 30 seconds. What do you want to close with?
Oh gosh. Well, please, please, please keep imagining with me how good can it get for you, for each one of you, for your businesses, for your families, for the world, because that's what we're doing together collectively. And we really can all win. It is possible. We can all be successful together and supporting each other. That to me is heaven on earth. It's doable in our lifetimes. So thank you for joining it with me. How good can it get?
Yay, how good can it get? Thank you for bringing high energy money to us today, quantum jumps, and the reminder of how good can it get. We just need to hold that energy together. And I believe that we want to have the domino effect out into the world. So Cynthia, thanks for being here. We wish you all the quantum leaps you can imagine in any way and shape and form that you want to bring those to. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Ursula. Really love it. Thank you. I love what you're doing too.
Thank you. So much fun co-creating with you. And to our listeners all over the world, we love you. We care about you. If you have ideas that, if you have guests that you would recommend to be on the show, you can reach out to us at contact@ursulainc.co. And, if you love the show, feel free to leave a review wherever you listen, and that can help other people see that this can help them too, because we want this information to get out to as many people as possible, because the more money that comes into your world, the bigger impact you can make on the planet. And we need our transformational leaders right now. So thanks, everybody. Make this your best week yet. See you next week.
Thank you for joining us today. And if you are ready to make your next quantum leap, let's do it. Ursula invites you to join us at the 2X Intensive. Go to salescoachnow.com/apply. Don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcast app.